Test, test. call this meeting to order. Roll call, please. Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Mr. Brown. Mrs. Mitchell. Mrs. Root.
Here.
Mr. Sawalish.
Here.
Mrs. Walters.
Here.
Mr. Albrecht.
Here.
Mrs. Galbraith is here.
Ms. Mitchell's here. Okay.
Miss Mitchell. We're doing attendance. We'll give you a shot. Okay.
Pledge.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Ms. Root, would you please recite our mission statement?
Sure. Our mission is to empower each student to positively impact the world for a bright new future.
Okay, thank you. So we have 2 items for public comment tonight. First is Sue Dunlap. Topic is support for Crete Monee School District.
I brought my fan club.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Sue Dunlap, and I am president of the Crete Women's Club. Our Crete Women's Club was established in 1912. And over the years, we've had a very long history of involvement with Crete Monee School District and its students. Tonight, we are here to reinforce our commitment to this district and also to the Board of Education and to the administration to make you aware of our commitment. We also would like to help you or ask you to solicit support for our continued efforts in the community. We reviewed our yearbooks just over we didn't go back to 1912, but we do have them. And in the past 20 years, we wanted you to be aware that we have awarded scholarships in the amount of $120,500. These scholarships go for college scholarships, technical trade, as well as high school and middle school summer camp scholarships. We also looked at what we gave to other organizations, and that amounted to $18,400. You can see below, we have listed the different organizations. Most of these organizations were at the high school, and over the last 20 years, it has amounted to over $138,860 in total monies that have benefited mostly our middle and high school students. In the past 3 years, we realized we kind of forgot the elementary students. So we took upon ourselves through one of our board members to get involved in sending students to the plays at Governors State University. There's an organization called the Mendenhurst Foundation, and we have partnered with them, and we are spending about $2,800 per year to help send over 300 students to the plays. We help supplement the cost of the tickets and buses. In 2018, we had a request for some buses to go see trees around the world. So we made sure every school had an extra bus if they were going to the Museum of Science and Industry. Also, out of our own members' pockets, we have donated school supplies. In the years, we found that many students come to school after the start of school year and do not have school supplies. So we took it upon ourselves to ask our members to donate school supplies. In the last 3 years, we have taken upon ourselves to give to at least 3 elementary schools per year. Now, how do we do all this? It's not easy, but we try. We raise our funds through our annual garden walk, our Christmas cookie sale, and we've also had a holiday house walk, especially this year. We just wanted you to know how invested we are in supporting your district, our district. Our mission is to serve our local community and especially students in our Crete Monee School District. So all we ask of you is at some point, maybe you'll publicize our events or help us support us in any other way. Thank you.
Thank you. We do appreciate the support. It's fantastic. Thank you very much. Next up, I have Tim Piepenbrink. The topic is the dome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I came to a board meeting back in September of 18 when you had a Saturday meeting and you had your plans on the table there to talk about what's going forward in the school district here. And one of the topics at that time was demolition of a bunch of buildings, which included the dome. At that point, or on that point, I asked if the dome could be spared. An email or two with Mr. Surma shared insights as to the thoughts behind the plan, of which a huge dome renovation cost would be incurred, and that had a lot to do with the thoughts on it. The dome is basically a sound structure. Life safety requirements will drive up the costs, and I feel like that's giving someone a blank check to do the work. There will be more practical ways to make corrections and improvements over a period of time. I understand the costs are exorbitant, and that's a big concern. I hadn't heard much about the plans until just recently. I saw that there was plans going in December here to proceed with demolition, including the dome. Further emails to Mr. Surma and a phone call with Dr. Kara just a few days ago brought out the difficulty the board has with all these big decisions here. You guys got a monumental task there. Try to satisfy everyone in the district. There's many projects to do. I understand that. Also, actual plans for buildings have, as I understand it, have not been approved yet, but they're just generally there. And I know the board's eager to get something done and get started with the plans that you have, but it doesn't sound like the architectural drawings are completed yet, or maybe nothing's been submitted. If I'm wrong, let me know. But an architect can make up a drawing of a plan site and drop it on a piece of property. It just happens that the dome is somewhere in that footprint. The dome has definitely got a value there. Okay. I think that we deserve to give that another look. Layouts, if they're not approved and finalized, maybe buildings can be moved around a little bit so it can be accommodated. That'd be a great gymnasium for little kids. You know, if it's going to be the 6th grade center, there's just so many potential uses for that. So I'd urge a discussion with the communities, all of our communities. It belongs to all of us, the taxpayers. There's certainly a way to keep this as a viable place. And if you look at the cost to demolish a building versus it's a free building, or you could sell it, the sway or the difference in the dollars is going to be a benefit to the school district and the taxpayers. So I'm just asking to take another serious look at that and how the layout of the grounds would be, where we could keep that building intact. It's just, there's not that much wrong with it that couldn't be resolved. And again, the life safety things, they get a little bit far out there, I think, that really don't, bear that much cost that we could incur. So anyhow, I've got the little notes here. If I could submit that to the secretary or somebody here, I'd like to at least ask for you guys to take that into consideration. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Next up, administrative updates. Dr. Kara?
Okay, it is my pleasure to always get an opportunity to share some of the donations that come through from a variety of sources in our community. Crete Elementary and both Monee Elementary have some folks to thank. Crete Elementary would like to thank Mr. Hernandez from Alicia's house and Chief Peritz from the Crete Police Department for helping to organize the Shop at the Cop event in Crete over the holiday season. This is a program that provided the opportunity for some of our third grade students to shop with a $25 gift certificate with a police officer for a special child in need. And then they were able to wrap that present and forward that to that student. Monee Elementary School would like to thank several folks. They'd like to thank UCP Sequin of Greater Chicago for their donation as part of the Infotech annual holiday gift drive. We would like to thank the Village of Monee and Monee Free Methodist Church for their donations of toys and school supplies. And we'd like to thank Vista Learning for their donation of a home computer for one student as part of their program for Computers to Kids in Need program. So we want to certainly thank all of them for their donations. It made certainly a difference for many students.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Next up is our consent agenda approval. Before I get a motion, does any member of the board wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'd ask Superintendent to read off the items.
Yes, under Superintendent, item number 1 is the regular meeting minutes of December 17, 2019. Number 2, regular meeting closed session minutes of December 17, 2019. Number 3, special meeting minutes of January 14th, 2020. Item 4, special meeting closed session minutes of January 14th, 2020. Item 5, review closed session meeting minutes of January 2019 through June of 2019. And item 6 is approved special education joint agreement. Business number 1 would be approve accounts payable. Number 2, approve payroll. 3, approve treasurer's report. Curriculum number 1 is Crete Monee High School National Show Choir Competition. Under District Affairs, it's approved the board policy Press Plus issue 102. And
That's it.
that's it.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Walters,
Sorry, aye.
Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell, Mr. Brown,
Present.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye, Mr. Albrecht.
Aye. Motion carries. Next up are action reports. First item is a resolution to approve a 30-year funding for our borrowing extension. Can I?
I think we need to read it. Yeah,
If I could have Secretary Galbraith, please read it.
we prepared you for that last week.
Get it on the record.
I was prepared. Whereas the Board of Education of Community Unit School District Number 201U, Will County, Illinois, is in the process of establishing a capital improvement plan, and whereas pursuant to the plan, the district will issue bonds to finance capital improvements to buildings and facilities throughout the district, and whereas the board has determined and does hereby determine the useful life of such buildings and facilities as improved by the projects will not be less than 30 years. And whereas school districts may issue life safety bonds under section 17-2.11 of the school code, working cash fund bonds under Article 20 of the school code, funding bonds under section 19-8 of the school code, and refunding bonds under Article 19 of the school code, provided, however, all such bonds must be repaid within 20 years. And whereas for certain school districts, the General Assembly has enacted and the governor has approved legislation authorizing bond repayment periods in excess of 20 years. And whereas the district is subject to the property tax extension limitation law, commonly known as PTEL, that's PTELL. And whereas pursuant to the provisions of PTEL, annual taxes levied to pay debt service, principal, and interest on non-referendum bonds issued by the district are limited to the district's debt service extension base. And whereas in 1999, district voters approved a DSEB, which is the debt service extension base, of $6,490,000,000. And whereas the board has determined and does hereby determine that it is necessary and desirable to pursue legislation authorizing a repayment period not to exceed 30 years for bonds issued by the district and payable from the district's voter-approved DSEB for the projects. And whereas such legislation would allow the district to allocate a portion of the tax burden associated with such bonds to future taxpayers who will benefit from and enjoy the use of the district's buildings and facilities as improved by the projects. Now, therefore, be it, and it is as, and it knew I couldn't make it all the way. Now, therefore, be it, and it is hereby resolved that the board hereby expresses support for legislation authorizing a 30-year repayment period for bonds issued by the district. What did I say? Oh, oops, he said I said 6 billion. 6,490,000. Sorry. I didn't hear anybody gasp. What's the deal?
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the resolution expressing support for 30-year, for legislation authorizing a 30-year repayment period for bonds issued by Community Unit School District number 201U, Will County, Illinois, for capital improvements?
Move.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
I have a question. And I understand that we're looking at in the reasoning for the 30-year, but it also lines out, and just for clarity, am I good?
No, I'm sure they.
Right there you are.
There you go, I'm good now. Just for clarity, it, also identifies for non-referendum, repayments, and I know we initially were talking about, and I see in the language where it does identify repay within 20 years. And then there's also the authorized bond repayment periods in excess of 20 years. And I know a lot of things are moving, and we're moving things beyond non-referendum items as a suggested method. And so I just want to know, how do we determine, just for clarity, how we administer those funds if we're doing things that may impact the tax base, but it does not go to a referendum? And are we looking to move those items, which could very well be big ticket items, in a 30-year plan, or are we looking at 20-year plans for that as well? How do we determine when we're going 20 or when we're going 30?
I think the Finance Committee has discussed what we're eligible to take,
Mhm.
and that was, I think it was $83 million.
Okay.
We have not determined the scope of all the projects as of yet. So if we were going to be borrowing that full amount,
Mhm.
because it's such a large amount, we would be wanting to spread that out over the 30 years as opposed to the 20. Smaller amounts wouldn't be as crucial. Again, because we wanted to make sure that we had enough borrowing power if there's emergencies that came up.
Right. And I just wanted clarity in that, because I know we had
Absolutely.
the conversation in the last session, but it was not as clear as it is in this document. And so I wanted to make sure that.
So we've asked our representatives to sponsor legislation. To
Right.
give us the flexibility to issue 30-year bonds if that made sense.
If need be.
So it doesn't mean that we do it, but if we wanted to, we could.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted the public to be able
Yes.
to hear that as
That's
well.
a good point.
Yeah,
Okay.
we haven't made a decision.
Right.
Just give us that option. And a lot of the bonds, the type of bonds that the secretary read off,
Right. Mhm. Right. Right.
It went out.
Right.
I saw the light green, but I must have. It's a good point because it gives us options. It does
Right.
gives us options. So, but kind of when you heard the secretary read the resolution, I was
Mhm.
kind of getting the feeling that it almost the decision was made too, and some
Right.
of it, just a little bit. But the superintendent and the president kind of clarified kind of what the resolution was.
Right. And we were presented, and I got that, but I think sometimes it's good for the public to be able to understand and
Sure.
identify, and especially
This
like
board
when
has
there's
not
a
made a
change.
decision.
Right. And when there's a change to a
Come up.
process.
Right. Exactly.
And also, there's no guarantee that the General Assembly is going to approve this.
There's no guarantee we'll approve. And, but I think it would be good to have this in our hip pocket before we make those decisions.
Right.
If we decide we can do something based on a 30-year period payment, and then it's not approved, then we've done something we shouldn't have. So,
Exactly. Right.
we put ourselves in a position we don't want to do. So,
Wonderful.
anyway, so I think this is good that we support this. We'll probably have a little more work to do to help support our representatives in this way, but they're very excited to help the school district.
That's a good question.
And
Thank
they're planning to come out for a visit. All three of them have wanted to come to the schools. So Terry is working with their schedules right now to come out to do some of our buildings that we're looking to put them in.
Mhm. Great. Thank you.
I do have one question. I asked the question in the committee as a whole about the document. You said it was a document on the website that pretty much talked about X amount of dollars that we have leverage to borrow if we went this way or the other way. I didn't see that document. What is that?
Well, I'll have to spend time with him, show it on the website.
Okay.
We presented that, PMA actually presented a
Really?
presentation in it. We videotaped that. And so it is on our website underneath the,
They presented it at the, what was it? At a regular
with the
board?
with the finance
With the
committee. And we
finance committee.
videotaped just that portion.
Okay.
So he could explain it. And
Okay.
I can certainly show you where that is.
Yes, that's okay. I look forward to I'm like, I kind of know the gist of what was going on with the 30-year resolution that
Mhm.
the secretary read out today, but I wanted to see those numbers.
It's helpful, yes.
Yes, but I can find, but that's okay. Good.
We don't know. Whenever they say. A lot of it, once we get a bill number on this, it goes to committee. I don't know what committee it's going to go to. As soon as I find out what committee it goes to, I will be seeking some conversation with those committee members to get some more support. And then they'll let me know when, to testify, if I do get called to testify.
So again, for clarity, the House, is that the House out there? Yeah, the House and the Senate would have to both approve this. The entire House and the entire Illinois Senate would have to approve this. And then the governor would have to sign it as well in order for it to become legislation. So is this a one-time shot for the district of Crete Monee, or is this for
This would let us
forever?
to do this forever.
So this has never been done, obviously, for Crete Monee, or never attempted. I don't know if it has been attempted and failed, but we
From
going
my
down
knowledge,
this
it's
road.
never been
It's only been
attempted.
done for another handful of districts, so I don't think we've
Ever went down that road? Okay.
Okay, any other questions, discussion items? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish.
Aye.
Mrs. Walters. Aye. Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up is human resources. Can I get an motion? Yes, so, can I get a motion to approve the personnel including approved certified staff employment, leave of absence, return from leave of absence, and educational support staff employment, leave of absence, reassignment, return from leave of absence, and resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussion items?
I almost want to say something just to keep this meeting going. It look like we're getting ready to finish up like before 7 o'clock. Let this mouth start going a little bit. How's everybody doing today? No.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mrs. Walters,
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye, Mr. Albrecht.
Aye.
There you go. Do something. Take a 5-minute
Next
recess.
up, under human resources, can I get a motion to approve the multi-year contract of Marjorie Trish?
And can you explain it? Yeah.
It's not what I was.
retirement. It's a retirement.
Terry,
Yeah, it should say retirement in there because that's very
I would say yes.
very deceiving. I'm like, oh.
Okay. Let me restate. Can I have approval for a multi-year principal retirement contract for Marjorie Trish?
So moved.
Any questions or discussion items? Hearing none, get a roll call.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mrs. Walters,
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye, Mr. Albrecht.
Aye.
You know, Ms. Galbraith wanted you to repeat that again, so you talk more.
That's it, I stretched it out.
Yes.
Now, don't encourage him.
Okay, next up, old business. We have one scheduled item, a monthly transportation discipline update.
Dr. Clark is out of town, so I'm gonna take the honor of presenting that to you. Is it on here? No. It's on board book. Okay, you can look at the board book, the screen.
On the chart, or it begins on page 394.
Okay. As you can see, the discipline non-referrals is down considerably for this time of year. The chart that you're looking at, we're tracking it every month. The last one, which I believe is the yellow in front of you, goes to show where the referrals are. And you can see, it's up there. Thank you. I'm having it's okay. You scroll up just a little bit for me. We've made considerable progress. As you can see, Balmoral, there was none. Crete had just 2 this last session. CSK, we were at 3. Monee, none. Talala, none. Middle school is down from 27, right around December, down to 9 in high school, 0. When we were reviewing all of these, what we did do some analysis for why are they down so much. We do understand that some of the buildings are instituting those bus suspensions that we had talked about earlier and following up with those students that, continue to have issues on those buses. So there is a reflection in that. So
Are we having more conversation with the parents?
I believe so. I believe so.
And we're gonna monitor this all the way till the end of the school year, right, to make sure.
Absolutely. And we are already beginning to talk about things for next year that we're going to try and employ. Working with our bus company and working with our deans, working with our behavior management analysis, and doing some trainings. So we're going to be working more in partnership with them as far as August goes.
Is it fair to say, so we have 5 months of sampling, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So if you look at the middle school and the last color, that's December, is that correct?
Yes.
So is it fair to say that because of the short month, that could be indicative of a lower number, or?
Yeah, because we missed 10, they were missing
Yeah,
10 days,
10 days, maybe a
roughly,
little bit.
8 to 10.
Perhaps we
I'm
all
not-
have to
I'm
remember
not-
December is a
Month that if it's gonna be bad.
It's gonna be bad, right? They're ready for break.
Ready to get out.
Yeah, I think they were kind of going after some of the referrals too, off of the
Yeah, I
bus,
remember
if
the
I
middle
remember
school.
her saying that.
Yeah.
So that's
But-
where the increase showed in that time frame. So that could be a factor because some of them, they went out and solicited different information to follow up on and to have those conversations, if I remember correctly, with the parents.
So it's not that different. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving week.
And a lot of turkey eating. You know what? I think it's
In your
very-
mic.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I think it's very commendable for all the schools to
Mhm,
numbers to be driven down.
mhm.
But what really stands out, because you hear so much, or at least in the past, negative press for various reasons at the high school. And see, the high school goes 0 across the board here. That is amazing. And I think we ought to recognize not all of the schools for doing a good job, but specifically the high school in some manner. You know, coming from the board. Okay? Let them know.
I will pass that through.
Have the principal that we approved her retirement thing tonight, as well as her. She can make an announcement. You know, keep doing whatever well they're doing on the bus. That's something else, in my opinion.
I think that everyone deserves a pat on the back for this because this was brought to us because of what appeared to be a situation that was out of control. And I believe that all of our schools, all of our administrators took this to heart that the board meant business. And I commend all of you for working very hard to get these numbers down. I'd like to see them at zeros, of course, but kids are going to be kids. We know that something's going to happen. But these to me are amazing. I thank you because I was one of I stood in for Mo and did all the talking on this, but this does my heart good to see that we can fix things. And they weren't major. I mean, when we started talking about them, they were just things that were growing because they were allowed to happen. And seeing as we address them, I'm praying that we continue to address them, that the students understand why this is occurring. I mean, safety on a bus is huge. Huge. So thank you to you for your leadership on this. Thanks to the board members who stuck with us and kept saying we need to fix this. And to all of our administrators, they really have been doing a great job and I appreciate it.
Mark should be commended. She did identify principals, students that were deemed in difficulty and also
Great. For old business? Okay.
I think it's old business. I'm not quite sure where to throw this in, but looking at the FOIAs, I don't know what we can do about that, but some of them taking 12 hours, 7 hours. I have concerns about 12 hours of Dr. Clark or Dr. Clark and her staff working on a FOIA. That's 12 hours away from her job. And we've had this kind of conversation casually before. I think this is something we need to address because, 12 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, we're looking at 16, 20 hours a month. That's 2.5 days of work. That's very concerning to me. So I kind of like to throw this out. Again, I started the bus thing. Now I'll start the FOIA thing. I don't mind being the starter here.
How would you like me to address that?
I personally think, and I was the one that actually wanted a way to measure the time spent on these 4 years. And there's nothing we can do as far as what the public requests, okay? but we could have multiple foyer officers. I was just thinking about it just a second ago.
Yeah.
That has a less impact on, I guess, we have an assistant superintendent taking the time in her staff.
Correct.
I don't know if we could have a person that have a lower status doing this, because we have to spend the time. And I don't know what defines cumbersome. Yeah, I don't know. If a foyer takes 50 hours or whatever, I guess by law we have to do it. But for a person that's being paid X amount of dollars like Dr. Clark, as opposed to someone, I think that person could be able to do the job too, or do the bulk of it. I don't know.
In particular,
Yeah.
this one was email communication between the superintendent and the mayor. Over, I think, a 2-month period. And it seems like that wouldn't take 12 hours to.
No, it was from 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was over a year.
It was from 2018, wasn't it?
Okay.
It was for a long
Okay,
period of time.
But still.
Yeah, but
But again, somebody can ask for, I guess, 10 years, I guess.
well, I think I don't
But
have an
so-
issue with the FOIA being requested,
Right.
but from what I understand, I mean, sometimes there's a ream of paper this thick and they have to go through and redact things. So that takes a personal touch going line by line by line. And I think that's where the labor intensive comes. And that costs big money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's
So-
why we have to maybe have a
We can look
a
at
person of at least, I don't know, everybody who works here is highly regarded.
So maybe we can look at some other options.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be, from time to time, we've had Huzzers that come in and talk to us about Robert's rules, or maybe something they could just review and kind of remind us, or what our responsibilities are. Just, that'd be helpful, so.
Yeah.
Do we have any recourse to unreasonable requests?
Yeah.
There's, I don't know.
There's some language that talks about cumbersome and things of that
Mhm.
nature, but we have to abide by the law, and it has to be, specific. The request has to be specific in scope, and I don't think there's a time frame. And if we do not normally have those documents, we can't go out and try to generate it. So if things are readily available, those are the things that we ought to provide to those people who request such FOIAs. But again,
We always encourage folks within the community perhaps not to go through FOIA, because we are transparent and we usually give anything anybody wants of us unless there's names on it and so forth. So, we don't have to go through FOIA to get general types of information.
yeah.
And
Well,
so
do you ask that question, or do you convey that information when a person FOIA? Say, you know what, you don't have to FOIA.
that has been
Okay.
shared with various people that have FOIA.
Mhm.
It does require us to give 5 days.
Mhm.
And so there's
5 days for personal, 10 for business, I believe. No, I said vice versa. It's a time frame for business. 5 for.
Period, right?
It creates a
I don't think so.
timeline, because usually I have to stop what I'm doing and go and look through committee folders and things like that.
And that
It's
is,
just what
it is.
So again, we would encourage folks that if they've got questions to come. Everyone knows I talk a lot, so I will sit and talk to anybody about anything. Call to my office. I will share anything we have here. Emails. Like I said, those are different scope. But if someone's looking for something in particular, I can just tell them. That's what it is.
And I do know that Dr. Clark has done that. She has reached out to people who send FOIAs and said, just call me. If I've got the information, bang, I've got it. And we're done, so that does cut down. But like you say, the emails, they have to have IT pull them, and then somebody literally has to. Now, I was surprised because like you, I thought it was only 2 months, but I just thought, my God, still 12 hours. That's a lot of reading and going through. So I was trying to, in my mind, think that, was that 12 hours correct, or was that a typo? Because we have had issues where it's been incorrect.
There were volumes on it, and a lot of it were duplicates and things like that.
Okay. Right. Gotcha. Well, I would appreciate if we could think about alternates at least. Thank you.
Stealing my old business. Any other old business?
I just want to mention the e-learning. You updated us on that. So do we think that we're going to be set for next school year? No problem?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
In fact, we have some training on Wednesday.
Yeah, I saw a
We're on track.
post that they were going to practice for a day and that they're going to do in February or whatever. So I was excited to see that they're getting this moving along.
For all the hard work they've done, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
I hope we don't need it though.
Right, exactly. But,
But it's there.
it appears that they're ready to test it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they've
that's
done a lot of
really
good
good
work on
news.
Here we are, close to February, and no school missed days, snow days so far.
Yeah, that's why we don't want you to talk.
Jeez, I just got fried. Everybody out there just said, what did you just say?
Have you reached it, Brown?
Oh, my goodness, that was good.
Any other old business? No. I thought I had one too. New business. We have one scheduled item, the Youth Recreation Program Certificate of Insurance for Facilities Usage. Is that what we're talking about?
Right. At the committee of the whole, I think it was Mr. Swalich that wanted to bring that up. So I wanted to make sure that we put it on here. But I also, we attached the facility rental agreement that we have that I think addresses that. So that's why I wanted to bring it back and make sure that that's what you were asking. If you've had a chance to look at it, conditions of rental. Anyone that is using our facilities does have to have proof of insurance. So that's part of it.
So, you said the magical word, rental. So, entities that are using our facilities, I don't think they are all rental or paying a fee in some way, shape, or form.
It has nothing to do with the fee. It just means if they're using our facility that we know about.
Even, let's go right there.
That is an
That we
operative
know
word.
about. Can we honestly say with a high level of certainty that they are using this agreement, have used this agreement?
Here's what I do know.
Because I don't think this is the case.
Well, those are the individual cases that we need to know about. And again, I emphasize we are
Shifting how we're doing things and we're going to a more formalized process than, hey, why don't you come over and use this? Or, hey, I'm going to bring my kids here and so forth. We are really focusing on
creating more formal structures. I think some of that still is, maybe it's occurring. I think there's less of it.
Yeah, so I will say the reason I brought it up is I think Mr. Brown and I talked, obviously because of a closed session. We
Yes.
talked about something, but many years ago when I ran Monee baseball, we had to sign an agreement because we were using the fields at the at the MEC. There's 2 baseball fields there. If we wanted to paint the fence, put banners on there, or do anything, we had to sign that agreement and prove certificate of insurance. So Monee Youth Baseball and Softball and Crete Youth Baseball and Softball should do that because they're using the facilities on our property, which again, we know what can happen.
But did you only have to do that if you were going to paint the fence or
No,
put a
if we were
banner
going
up?
to use the fields.
Okay,
So that we can
okay, because you said
use-
something about those banners and that, and I thought you meant only if you were doing
No,
that.
so that we can use machines on the field, put kids on the field, put coaches in the field. But this was 2001. This was many years
Correct.
ago.
And it is my understanding, because we made it very clear, with the B&G department, as Catherine goes in, people want to use the stuff, this is what they get, this is what they fill out, and then they get scheduled to use.
Yeah.
So.
And it's simple to fill out, but it's just getting a certificate to cover the district. I don't think the district should be responsible if someone else is using that. And our insurance shouldn't have to.
Well, so for things like the field rental.
It's not.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like
It's not. And that's
Yeah.
with this whole facility that we are about to embark upon. I think we was gonna, Ken's intention was for
Right.
us to look at this, revisit this and kind of clean it up.
Yeah,
It's green.
Yeah, you gotta be close to the mic though,
Right, but I
my
think
braces
that-
mic is
are you-
stuck.
because they can't hear you at home.
Hi there. But yes, but Bill brought up a good point at the committee as a whole. We need something in this. We need to keep driving this until we can better this agreement. We haven't got to that point yet, but minimum.
And it's not so much a cost,
Right.
as it is protecting the
Protection.
district. It's not so much charging them, the fields should be used for the kids. But if they're gonna use the fields, they have to have insurance.
And when we take a position, Cheryl, when we take a position, I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, I had to agree. One thing I know I'm fighting for space here, my height. But in looking at the information, one of the things that we were talking about was, being able to indemnify the school, and it does have clear language in there because we were saying that we should not be the first order of service for anybody that wants to come after somebody because they think that they can because of funds that may be available, of which there are none. So let me just make that a public arena here. But there are none. But it does identify in the facility rental agreement as to the terms of indemnity. And so I think that, it's very clear on that. Maybe as stated, the mission should be for us to maybe even include the more wordy in terms of like the recreational facilities. And it may state that. I know that you were talking about buildings and ground, and it covers us on that area, but maybe we need to be a little bit more specific and identify and even the language with the recognized organizations, be it baseball, football, or whatever, from an outside entity, that it covers that in the language of the rental agreement. Whether they're renting it or even if we waive it, there's still things that should exclude the district in a lawsuit, and especially if it's by a third-party vendor.
At my township board meeting on Thursday, our council looked at this for the first time because we're looking to rent, as a township, looking to do some rental with the school district. And he liked it. He didn't see any major flaws other than punching the time clock, but wasn't sure on that. And how you guys the school district want to invoice the township. So again, as Shirley was about to say, there are some issues with this, and I think we would need all hands on deck when it comes to revisiting this agreement and clean it up a little bit. But right now, I'll have a conversation with you, Dr. Connors, and thank you, and Ms. Perry for, and we did approve it for use. So I'll be getting back to you, okay? Sidebar conversation. But it was good.
Because I'm not quite clear what I'm supposed to do.
And
I also have a question. How does this affect the person who just goes and uses our field? I mean, people have company and the kids go and play on the field.
The district does have insurance for those kinds of things.
Okay,
Anybody that's on our property, we have insurance for.
right. But so we don't really, okay, we have insurance now for those who are signing agreements with us. And they can still proceed further. So couldn't another person, I guess what I'm saying is, I see a lot of people using the fields at Crete Elementary because they're easily accessible. And they're just families out there playing, or they're having kids just in the neighborhood. So you can't stop that. So what's the difference between that and this? I guess I'm just being the devil's advocate here. We know they're out there using it.
And I think that's the key word.
Okay.
I know it's public, but it's talking about organizations as a service to our community. Crete Monee School District 201 allows organizations to rent our facility.
But even if they're not renting. So again, this is all, yeah. Because I mean, I do see a lot in the summertime, our fields are being used by lots of people. So that's where I'm wondering. Right.
Well, we had it, and that's where the issue came up.
With the track, right?
Yeah. And the board will shoot you if you're caught after 4:00 on this track.
I did not say that.
So, as you know, school districts as a whole belong to the community. And we do allow people access to our things, because
your park districts and so forth. So the insurance does cover, a family that wants to take their kid out after school, babysitters, those kinds of things. It just does. But this protects us about organizations that are organizing sports, and you've got more opportunities for mishap and so forth. So
That's, I think, where we need to start. Organizations that use our, they're using our facilities, but it's protecting the district. That's it. Because if you're bringing in, and there's gonna be 100 baseball games or 8 football games, whatever facility, we just have to protect us, the district.
And I think
That's we could.
It does.
If it's being used. If it's being used. And the certificate of insurance that they provide is now under them, so that it protects us from.
So, like I said, from what I understand, everyone is using this system. I've not heard of anyone reporting that, hey, we saw so-and-so out in the fields. Did they do a rental approval? I've not heard any of that. So.
So we can request that then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we have baseball season coming up.
Mhm.
Those baseball fields are going to be used, and we have to make sure that those entities that's using those fields are in some type of agreement.
And again,
Enter into an agreement.
long story short, there was an incident a couple of years ago in Monee, and it was a big deal, and to a couple adults. And what we don't want to be caught in the crossfire of that on a lawsuit or anything extra of that. We just don't. I mean, I don't think that the district should have that responsibility. So with season coming up, just make sure that the organizations using it have signed it and provided a certificate of insurance. That's correct.
Right.
Yes, with the right thing. That's it. That's all we're asking. No money. That's right.
Insurance holders on the certificate of insurance. So I think it may be proactive upon us to seek out Monee University Park if they're looking to use any facilities during the summer, Crete, so on and so forth, prior to the season start.
And if I'm right, I think the district has to be additionally insured on the certificate.
Exactly.
To make sure that we're covered.
Exactly right. So
Add the sports fields on there under things. I know you can write it in, but that's like the biggest thing that we need. It's not really on there.
or something that could go in there right now.
Requested facilities.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to know what names, like, it's like,
Right.
right, yeah, it's our main concern.
Okay. We can do that. That's easy to add. It's a
Electronic document.
You know what I see? I'm just looking at the selected dates. In here. It doesn't have summer for whatever reason. I just noticed that.
Probably because it's a facility rental probably for the district and mostly the summer you're out of school.
Right. To me, this is more like a one-time
Right.
thing. That's what I'm saying. I didn't know if it was
kind of
perfect
general
for
summer,
our
so-
sports field purposes.
Yeah, so we may want to look at that.
I mean,
Because
it's
we're
good.
talking,
It's a
yeah.
good
Starting
base.
point.
I just think it has to be worded a little differently. for
Yeah,
somebody who's renting for a whole season.
See, I know the program I'm looking to embark upon is going to stop in May, so this suits us well, but the other communities we're talking about is not covered under that, so we're gonna add that
This is a
too.
document that should be reviewed by the facilities group, because this is kind of one of the items on its agenda. It's still,
It was.
It was.
and I think there's two tracks. One is kind of review, kind of come back to the board with a proposal on updating this form. But I think the other is kind of doing an inventory of what we do have for the summer sports, where we have organizations that we know is, do we have at least a side original agreement with them and a current insurance certificate?
Exactly.
Can I add just one thing? Because when the facilities requested is truly identifying and lining up under facilities, we probably need to add in here our playing fields. Because it says field house, cafeteria, media centers, parking lot. It identifies all those things, the gyms, but it does not identify our outside entities.
Because it looked like it was never meant to
Right.
be.
Right, which I'm sorry, I didn't even hear you.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It was never meant to be.
Yeah. Great.
No, that's not.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm sorry.
And we can send it out in FYI. Look at it. If there's something else you'd like to adjust, we can do that later.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, we have nothing for closed session tonight. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All in favor?
I have more questions.
What?
No, it's not- I'm hyperventilating. This can't be. I'm getting goosebumps. God, dog. I tried to stop. Did you notice that? Okay, I tried. I can't check this. So,
Okay.
so move. Yes. Okay. So we are officially adjourned.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. And remember to fill out your